Hey, what is up guys, Massive here, back to do another video, and today I've got two games, two highlights of Steel Talons versus ZOCOM. Me being the ZOCOM faction, I'm going to show you all how to play versus Talons. This matchup is very asymmetrical. Steel Talons don't have access to sonic emitters, nor do they get access to heavy infantry. At the same time, ZOCOM lack artillery, nor do they get the railgun upgrade, but railguns not particularly useful anyways in this matchup because ZOCOM doesn't really spam tanks. They can do if the situation arises. For instance, if you go mass infantry, your opponent's likely going to be spamming Wolverines. At that point it makes sense to go for a couple tanks. My preferred unit against Wolverine spam is the Shatterer. Does very well against mass Wolverine. One particular combination that stands out against Steel Talons is the Infantry Shatterer combo. Because the Shatterers can deal with the Wolverines, the missiles deals with the Titans. Really the only thing that can stop it is mass Hammerhead, but the tier 2, the command post, unlocks the slingshot anyways. You can transition quickly into slingshots if an airfield is scouted from your opponent. Get a couple slingshots out. They are hovercraft. They roam around the battlefield extremely quickly. And even without tungsten shells, they are very potent. They also double up as an anti-infantry unit. You can run over enemy units with those slingshots. Very potent at that because they move quickly. Nor do they slow down when crushing. Some units do, like the Eradicator Hexapod and Titan, but not the case for the slingshot. I'm doing a scout here because I know my opponent has the tendency of doing really weird strats early on. I could have got Orca Rush. This is a good map for Orca Rushes due to the rush distance being particularly small. Six City, I like this map a lot. It was a Technique made map, inspired a lot by Small Town USA. It has a lot of garrisonable structures in the middle, and instead of green fields in the corners, we have blue fields. Speaking of, a harvester is going there now. It probably will be forced to turn back. That Pitbull is going to force it back or not. Just gonna delay it. And I'm going for infantry here. This is a good strategy. One base infantry. He's gonna see this barracks and think there's gonna be a lot of imp. This is sort of a mind game tactic, while my intention is to go for a rig rush instead. So I'm building a rig. He's probably working on a command post at this present time. Pitbull, I want to stop that from getting into my base to reveal what I'm up to. But the most reliable way of scouting as a GDI faction is to just use the radar scan ability. Once you get the command post, Grenadier Squad comes out. I'm going to use that to clear the garrisonable structures. And I'm also working on the Tiberium field suits upgrade. One advantage of picking the ZOCOM faction is that you have a cheaper and a quicker research duration upgrade for your infantry. Tiberium field suits takes 15 seconds less, $500 less expensive as an upgrade. It's the same armor buff as the composite armor. A lot of people mistakenly believe that it gives them more armor compared to composite armor, the GDI upgrade, but in fact it is the same exact upgrade. The only difference is, as in the name implies, it grants them immunity to Tiberium exposure. But for you who believe it decreases damage from Tiberium attacks like it says in the description, it does not. That is a lie. It does not do that. Now it technically does reduce the damage from Tiberium, but Tiberium based attacks, yeah, none can affect it anyways. Like Tiberium agitation is a Tiberium based attack, and also that airfield got completely annihilated there. I timed the orcas just right. He could not avoid that. It was impossible. Even if he was looking, it would have been impossible. You cannot save orcas or firehawks if they're landing and getting picked off like that. At most, yeah, you just have to accept their fate. The ZOCOM orcas have huge splash damage, which will allow them to kill all of those aircraft on the deck. and that was a great pickup from me, especially after losing the harvesters from his orcas. So Orca v Orca, the ZOCOM Orca prevailing in this matchup. I will want to get the ceramic armor. I prefer not to get ceramic armor at first because it's highly unlikely your opponent is ready for aircraft. You don't really need to increase the survivability of your aircraft if they are unscouted. Only after the fact is it going to be a great upgrade like I get here. I was able to take some less damage from his anti-air. Those GDI AA batteries, not particularly powerful. They can be though once that upgrade is researched. I missed the ZOCOM Orca strike. Taper off damage though. Did some damage. Obviously, if you hit it directly, this is going to do way more damage. V35 Ox, this is another thing you can do as a GDI faction to scout. Just load up a rifleman inside of a V35 and use a waypoint to waypoint it around the map, and that will give you excellent vision. It will allow you to detect where your opponent's units are coming from. In this case, I'm using it to detect orcas so I can position my pit bulls in advance. Engineer gets sniped there. A little bit of surgical ability on those ZOCOM orcas. V35 Ox, I can use them also to body shield my ZOCOM orcas to take some damage. I think shots will want to be careful. Those Predator tanks, they have a role in this matchup despite the superior Titan being in the Steel Talons arsenal. These Predators are going to be excellent in situations such as this where there are mostly Wolverines, slingshots, because he has not yet encountered much in the form of armor from the ZOCOM players. So yeah, there is a role for these units despite being outclassed. Refinery gets sold off. Best to sell off refineries rather than let them be destroyed. I said this a number of times on videos, but if you just let them be destroyed, they will deduct resources from your stashed income. Lots of harvesters docked in my refineries. Good job, harvester bugging no longer occurs. I can tell you in vanilla or patches earlier, it would have been a disaster. You would have had harvester bugging for days, and it would have dramatically changed the outcomes of many games. But now you don't really have to babysit your harvesters as much. ZOCOM Orcas, I'm going to do a micro guide in the future for ZOCOM Orcas because a lot of people think that they suck. It's not the case. There is a particular way in using them. I like to put them on hold fire stance, control to force fire the ground, and I simultaneously press the S key on my keyboard so they don't unload all their magazine. So if I want them to unload just one sonic grenade, I force fire and then just press S quickly. If timed correctly, they'll only fire one sonic grenade instead of all of their ammunition. It can be beneficial though, the pace and speed at which they fire all of their grenades. In particular when you're using them as bombers. If you want to get out of the opponent's AA quickly, if you want to get the most DPS as possible on your opponent before retreating, before losing your units, then it's great in that situation. Shatter is moving forward, ZOCOM Orcas ahead, waiting for something to destroy. The Orcas are coming back once again, but I do have the ZOCOM Harvesters, but in the code, ZOCOM Harvesters only do 50% of their total rocket damage to aircraft. They're not the best versus air, but they still can do some damage. I'm working on a Space Command uplink here as well to unlock that supersonic airstrike, but I want to be careful. If I use the supersonic airstrike on orcas on uneven terrain, they will not be destroyed, but I use it here and I was able to snare all 4 of the orcas. Green Zero a couple weeks ago told me that this support power is underused, it is useless. I don't know guys, I'll let you be the judge there. I believe he is slightly wrong in that matter. Mammoth tank comes out. Just 2 of them. I don't want to overcommit into mammoths. These are just to deal with the Wolverines. It's a better alternative to the Predators once you have that tier 3 unlocked. And in 1.2 plus, mammoth tanks have increased turret turn speed as well as their missile launchers dealing more damage to ground targets. compared to the base game. And you know what else ZOCOM walkers excel at? They excel at destroying behemoths and juggernauts. Some ranks happening up on those. And now I see behemoth spam is coming out. So a lot of players would not do what I'm about to do here. And that is to transition into mass zone raider. A lot of people will be considering a Marv at this point. Yeah, look, my opponent has a Marv. He's got 3 or 4 behemoths out on this map, tungsten shells. So AA is in plentiful amounts for him. He's going to be camping up now, and this is where things get pretty tough as ZOCOM. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a transition. I'm going to make a very swift transition, and look at these tungsten shell slingshots, destroying all 4 of those ZOCOM walkers. I got wrecked there. Tank camping that blue Tiberium field. I don't want him gathering any more of that, and I know, yep, can't go for any more aircraft. That tungsten is just too much for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a mass zone raider transition, getting the 2 upgrades for them, the power packs and scanner packs. The power packs will heal zones when out of combat incredibly quickly in this community patch. Scanner packs unchanged. The only thing that is different about zone raiders compared to vanilla is the fact that the power packs heals them faster when out of combat, but when they're taking damage, obviously they will not be healed. So here's a shockwave artillery, and since I've got so many and I was able to squeeze out so many so quickly with those 4 barracks, he's not going to have ample time to respond to this. He only has just seen them, and that's the beauty about going for 3 or 4 production queues at the same time. You can get a surprise transition out very quickly. Marv taking huge damage. It's just zone raiders, and the good thing about zone raiders as well is they have a shoulder mounted missile launcher which allows them to kill the odd hammerhead if they come up across them. And look at these behemoths. Behemoths, traditionally a unit that ZOCOM struggle with, getting absolutely annihilated there by these zone raiders. A unit unlocked only by the ZOCOM faction. Those behemoths just unable to do anything. MCV going down as well. These watchtowers, they can only get off 1 shot. He just does not have anything to deal with this, and since those riflemen don't have the composite armor upgrade, they're going to be taken out as well. The grenadiers slightly harder to destroy. They have faster grenade speed now, so making those against zone raiders probably not a bad choice. I'm looking at these zone raiders at all times. It just takes 1 second of me looking away to lose all my zone raiders. They are a very micro intensive unit. I need to make sure that they are not wandering off and getting killed. This is all or it, nothing for me. Hammerheads taking damage, and just these zone raiders are kicking butt here. They are taking out the hammerheads, they are taking out the infrastructure. All the vehicles went down, the Marv fell, the MCV as well has fallen. There's no watchtowers for him. Harvesters going down, tier 3 gets sold off. And even the hammerheads, they just are not enough. The ZOCOM unit has a means of destroying them in quantity, and that is going to be GG. Zone raiders prevail outside of garrisons. That's another thing as well. People often assume that zone raiders are only helpful in games when they're not in garrisons, and that's not the case. Anyways guys, let's go on to game number 2. I'm going to showcase another strategy you can employ against Steel Talons as ZOCOM despite the lack of artillery. So let's get into that one right now. Alright guys, welcome back to game number 2, and I'm not playing ZOCOM this time. It's actually be GDI, which is even better because I feel GDI is the faction that is least favored against Steel Talons just because they don't have the adaptive armor. So going for mammoth tanks versus them is a big shortfall of GDI. They don't have railgun accelerator either to supercharge their railgun mammoth tanks, double the rate of fire. So they're gonna have to rely on other means to get ahead versus Steel Talons. And just like the ZOCOM faction, they get infantry with upgrades, they get shatterers, they get sonic emitters. Commandos are also surprisingly decent against Talons as well. You can jump jet on top of Titans And for the commandos that are brave enough, even jump jet on top of Wolverines, and they have the chance of taking out a Wolverine. 2 is getting a bit lucky, but I would say 1 Wolverine can be destroyed by a commando. Just jump on top of it, C4, and that Wolverine is destroyed. But the strength in GDI is that they're a faction which doesn't really compromise in a whole lot. It's a vanilla faction, it has the tools, it can combat many situations. Not the best in any particular way, but it's not a weak faction. I prefer sub-factions in this game. I just love the way they specialize into certain tech trees, like the Mark of Kane going heavy into the EMP abilities, emitting flame entirely, the Steel Talons not getting infantry but instead getting very powerful armor. In fact, an armor duel against Steel Talons is extremely unfortunate for a faction that isn't Steel Talons. You've got to really combo it with other types of units. Tripods, in the case of Skrin, are not going to match Mammoth tanks, so what you can do is you can go for the now buffed shock troopers and use them against the Mammoths in conjunction with the tripods. So yeah, ZOCOM airborne ability, GDI airborne ability coming in. This is the same support power besides them getting GDI infantry here. I'm going for 2 barracks on 5 harvesters, 2 refineries. And he hasn't scouted this. This is a strategy that Wookiebert used to do back in the day. I'm not going to overcommit into infantry. Once this upgrade's researched, it's going to make him panic and overspend. He's going to be trying to get out Wolverines. They're not particularly good without AP ammo. He doesn't have snipers either, so if you have a GDI player going for infantry early on, you can't panic and build some sniper teams. No, you have to get that AP ammo upgrade, and it's a minute upgrade. MRTs. Look at that armor though, with that repair drone absorbing all those rockets. It still had a chance to retreat. Now what he should be doing here is blocking his watchtowers, putting a power plant behind. Putting a power plant in front of the watchtower will help immensely, but the whole point of this is just to delay him. I know he's going to be getting AP ammo, he's probably going to be going hammerheads, so the next move I'm going to make is going to go for a tier 2 and shatterers. Shatterers to kill Wolverines, and slingshots potentially to kill the hammerheads. 2 War Factory slingshot shatterer is my follow-up in this particular game. Making some more infantry just to fend back these MRTs coming towards me. They're going to be defending the base. Look at that MRT, even providing repairs to the watchtower. That's a very unique ability of the Steel Talons faction. They can repair their buildings with units. This is keeping him busy. It's keeping him scouted too. I'm going to know what's up. He uses the radar scan in my base. Doesn't reveal a whole lot. Sees some infantry and a lot of harvesters. Only now am I working on my command post. Now that didn't do as much damage as I had hoped, but it did get me the upgrade for my inf, which compared to ZOCOM does take a little longer, is a little more expensive. So I'm ready to go back into infantry again if his Wolverine count reduces. I'm hoping it does with the next transition I make. The first of many Shatterers has come out. And I'm going to use this scan here. I can use the War Factory to produce a slingshot at this point in time. Against those orcas is going to be a great thing for me. Very, very maneuverable unit. But I'm going to put a counterattack on him. I know those orcas are out, but the AA batteries should suffice. He's only now got his 4th orca out. He's going to choose. Does he go into my infantry and take out the Shatterers with his Orcas, or does he harass my Harvesters? I'm presenting this difficult question to him. AP ammo is now researched, so the infantry is going to do a lot less to me. A third AA battery comes down. That's going to be enough to defend my field against those Orcas. Watchtowers, man, they stand no chance against these Shatterers. The Shatterers are going to help a lot against the Watchtowers, against the Wolverines, and even against these structures. I'm going to be able to drop the War Factory very quickly. Some forces defending my base there against the counterattack. Just a handful of MRTs and Pitbulls, but that is threatening enough for me to leave some forces behind. Mammoth tank comes out. He's also using the power plants to shield his watchtowers, which is a good thing. But the special ability of the Shatterer is that its sonic wave can penetrate through buildings and even hit targets behind structures. But you will have to force fire the ground in front of the structure. But Shatterers, a unit that you don't see too much really. In this matchup, very potent. Mammoth tank comes out. He's probably getting the railgun upgrade against these Shatterer tanks. Against GDI, it makes a lot of sense to purchase railguns. And I know I can't win the armor duel. Like I mentioned at the start of this game, going for Mammoth tanks and trying to win solely with Mammoths is a failure. You got to make use of your faction advantage. In this case, it is the Shatterers and heavy infantry for me. Steel Talons get neither one of those things. I can get the Grenadiers, research EMP grenades, but as you guys know, the Talons have adaptive armor, so I'm just opting for the missile spam here while defending my base. I'm also concerned about my MCV potentially getting sniped on that hill by the Orcas. Harvesters goes down instead. That's not the end of the world. So these infantry and Shatterers are going to be moving in. This Watchtowers are not going to form a defensive position for him against that many Shatterers. He's going to need Behemoths now against those Shatterers. Or he can use Mammoths. Adaptive armor can tank so much rocket fire whilst the Shatterers get targeted down. I'm deploying these AA batteries. V35 Ox comes out. It's nice to see more players use V35s to keep the map scouted. I remember many years ago it was only me who did that. And Hammerheads, missiles can deal with them quite nicely. Not in great numbers, but you can soft counter Hammerheads. And these Shatterers are just completely obliterating this base. Watchtowers coming down, but yeah. With this many missiles, with these Shatterers taking them out, the missile squads will have free reign over the rest of this base. Now, I was completely oblivious to this, but he captured the expansion point on his third expansion. So here's me thinking the game's over, when in fact it is not. He has that field on the top left. He's actually established the expansion way before me. I'm in this base though, messing around a bit, and I was thinking, okay, that's a pretty defended area there. I don't want to get my infantry worn down by those watchtowers. Let's go up here and see if he's got something, and indeed he did have. He's got watchtowers already set up there, a war factory. So it's going to be very hard for me to get up here now with my shadow account reduced significantly. But I'm not transitioning yet to tier 3 myself. I'm going still for Shatterers. Only now do I build my tier 3. So I've been on this tier 2 for quite a while. I don't think you guys have seen this many Shatterers in a game. But against Steel Talons, it makes a ton of sense. And just like that, you can negate its huge armor advantage. Shatter is very powerful against structures and vehicles. Those harvesters will be forced off the line. He is bringing in resources. He does have an MCV, so he can pop down more watchtowers, but I have more Shatterers coming in, more Predator tanks, and yeah, sonic emitters would really help a lot here, but that's why this strategy works, because Steel Talons do not have those sonics. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. Steel Talons is a very powerful faction in this metagame. I consider it to be one of the better factions, but it does have some inherent flaws, like not having sonic emitters, not having advanced infantry, and struggling to deal with Shatterer infantry strategies. So that was a demonstration there of how you can combat ZOCOM's inadequacies and GDI's inadequacies by going for strategies that Steel Talons notoriously struggle against. Infantry, Shatterer, ZOCOM Walker, into the Zone Raider strategy. That was the bread and butter of the ZOCOM. GDI has to do something similar, otherwise they'll get rolled by mammoth tanks. Anyways guys, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to smash the like button, I'd really appreciate that. And before I leave, I'd like to thank all my Patreon members for supporting me and my channel and keeping this wonderful community going. Anyways guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.